Hello everybody and welcome to episode 5. In this episode we're going to concentrate on maintenance to instruments and repairs, which will also include some restorations. But real quick, we're going to show you just a couple of different things that can be done on instruments, some of the different repairs that we've done, the restorations that we've done. And one of the things that we want to do is also show you restring. So we're going to do a classical restring, which is nylon strings. And then we're also going to do a steel string, restringing those, and we'll just show you the way that I restring them. It's not the only way to do it. As I've said, I think in the very first episode, I talked about this is the way that we at Delgado Guitars do things. We're not saying it's the only way to do it, but it's the way that we've done it, and it's something that we stick to through our 92-year history. So. We'll start with the restring, but before we get to that, I'm going to show you a couple of just some small repairs that we do. All right? So some of the things that we'll get sometimes is clients will bring us in instruments that they just want some modifications done to it, and it can be something as simple as adjusting the action. And I talked about this in an earlier episode. The action is the distance between the string and the fret, and the fret are those shiny bars going across the fingerboard. They're usually nickel or silver, but sometimes they can be gold. But that's what we call the action. So if the action is really low, it's going to be dropped closer, and if it's really high, it'll be like this. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's whatever the particular player is used to or what they're looking for. So in this situation, this customer wanted a combination of things done. He wanted the action lowered, and he also wanted these position dots added here on the side of the fingerboard. And they're exactly what the name says. They're position dots. Dots to help you know what position you're in. He requested to have the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th fret with the position dots. And he asked for double dots on the 5th and 9th just to help him know. And Bill's got these right here on this instrument. And if you look over here, he's got another guitar over here that you saw earlier where he's touching up now the side of the fingerboard that he's also added the position dots to. I'll tilt it a little bit here and you can see. And now he's just touching it up with some lacquer finish. And then when he's done with that, he'll wet sand it and buff it out. And then he's also doing a little bit of work on the bridge on this particular instrument. This is the bridge right here. He's got it taped off, but he's shaved some of the wood off of the bridge in order to allow the saddle. Can I see a saddle from you, Bill? The saddle is this piece. We like to use bone. Sometimes some instruments they'll use tusk or composite or plastic. We use bone, but the bone is the part that goes inside of the bridge, and we call this the saddle. And just like you would sit on the saddle of a horse, the saddle is what allows the string to rest on it, and then the vibrations transfer from the saddle to the bridge, which bridges the vibration from the strings to the top. And the top is also known as a soundboard. We covered this in some of the earlier episodes, but that's going to allow that vibration. So this is just one example of a repair / modification. So sometimes you get repairs where something got broken and it has to be fixed. And in these two situations that we're showing you here, nothing was necessarily wrong with the instrument. It's more about customizing what the client wanted. So this is more of like an alteration, if you will. So that's just a couple of quick examples. Let's go back and I'll show you how to restring that classical. So this is a concert classical guitar. This is actually a brand new instrument that I'm building for a client. But one of the things that I do is before we complete the instrument, I actually will put strings on it so it'll have tension. I'll let it sit for a few weeks, and then I'll come back and I'll add the frets to it and finish sanding it. But for the purpose of showing you how to string a nylon string instrument, this is going to be great because it's actually, we can show 3 different examples here, okay? So this is a ball end string. And sometimes you can order a string for nylon or classical guitars and you can request this ball end. The purpose of this, you've seen this if you have a steel string or an electric guitar, but on nylon strings they're not as common. But the purpose of this is it makes it easier for stringing it. Basically all you'd have to do is run the string through the hole here and the ball end will hold its place right there, and you don't have to worry about trying to tie the string or anything like that. Okay? Now, this bridge, if you look there, there's actually 12 holes. Okay? This is a design that we will use sometimes, and instead of tying the string, and I'll show you an example of what that looks like, you would run the string through and then run it through this other hole here again. Actually, I'm going backwards. For the 12-hole design, it would go like this. You would run the string through here, like this, and then bring it back and go through the other hole like this. And then with this little piece of string left over, fold it underneath here, and it wouldn't even matter if it had that ball end or not, and that holds it in place. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do this one like this, and then the next one I'll show you how we tie it. Actually, why don't we do this? I'll do this one like this. We'll do one with just the ball end, and then we'll do one that's tied, and you'll be able to see all three different options. Okay? So there's this one. And in this case, like I said, the ball end doesn't really even matter, so I'm going to cut it off. We're just going to remove it. We don't need it because we're using this 12-hole design, and it'll hold the string just like that. Okay, so there's that one. Now, on the 5th string, I'll just use the ball end, and we'll slide it through like this. Okay, and then on the 4th string, I'll show you how you tie it. So again, I'm not going to even use this. I'm going to cut it off. So if this was only 6 holes instead of 12, this is what you would do. You'd run the string through like this. I always like to have the neck to my right. You can have it the other way if you're left-handed, or if you prefer to string it up the opposite way, meaning if you're more comfortable having the instrument facing the other direction. But from here, I'm going to wrap the string going down towards the treble up to the bass like this. Okay, so I've just made a little loop around the string. And then I'm going to wrap it once, twice, and then you put tension on it, and that holds the string right there. And you would do this for any of the bass strings. Okay, the treble strings you would do almost exactly the same, maybe add one more loop. Another thing you can do on the bass strings that you can't do on the treble, because the bass strings are wound, you can just make, I like to make a little treble clef like that. So you see, it's underneath the string, and then it's still underneath. It goes under and back under like this, and it's holding right there. But the important thing here is, this is called the tie block, this piece of wood right here. The important thing is that this piece of string has to be on the back of the tie block. I don't care if you just wrap it like I showed you in the first one. Okay, if I just did wrapped it twice, let's say 1, 2, and then when I tightened it, all of those wraps were on the top here, it wouldn't hold. Or if I did it the way I just showed you, and I'll start again so you can see, I go around the string coming from the treble up to the bass side. Okay, and then this is just going to go underneath like this, and this part right here will go over it like that. I'm going to use my thumb to hold it like that. But if this string is not sitting back here, it will come loose if you have it on the top. All right, and then the other important thing to do is when you have to wrap the string or tie it, you want to push this part down. And the reason that's important is when the string is coming off of the saddle, you want that downward angle to be as steep as possible, because that's going to help get you more vibration out of your instrument, get more voicing out of the top. If you tie it and the tie is way up here at the top, then you can see the string doesn't have as much downward pressure. So if you push it down like this, that gives it a little bit more of an angle. All right, so those are the 3 options there. And then before we get to the treble strings, I'm going to show you how we would put them together up here on the machine heads. So there's a couple different ways also to string it up here. Actually, there's more than a couple. The mistake a lot of people make is they'll put the string through like this, and then they'll tighten the string, okay? And what happens is even if it's wound up around, you can just pull on the string and loosen it. So you're constantly having tuning issues. Or some people might go a step further and maybe they'll wrap it through twice, which on the thicker bass strings, the E and the A, might be enough, but it may not. So what I like to do is on the bass string, the E, I'll go through once only, and then I bring the string up, and then I wrap it like this. But I try not to have too much. See all this slack right here? I try to have a little bit less, maybe like this, see? So then it's only gonna go around a couple of times, because you do want the string to wrap around, but not too much, all right? So you saw I just wrapped it around itself twice. So I went through, brought it back up once, twice, and then I have it nice and tight here. There's no slack right here either. And then from here, if you have a hand winder, you can just tune it. The string should always go over the roller and under, not under the roller, okay? I've seen people where they'll string them up like that. The other mistake sometimes people make is, if you can get that shot right there, they'll have the string wind right next to the side, and then it ends up building up in there. You don't want to do that. I try to kind of feed it and guide it like this, and you can see it's just now starting to get tension, and now I'll bring it back to the inside. And the reason I'm doing that is because this is the 6th string. I don't want it resting all the way over here, because then my other 2 strings are going to get in the way. So I'm going to bring it over here like this, and then you see it feeds right off of that off the nut right here and slides into there. Whereas if the string were all the way over here, then it would come this way, and then when I go to bring my 5th string over here, it would be in the way of that one. So this way it's already clear. All right, so there's one. And then I always wait until after I've strung all of them up, make sure it's all in tune, the strings have stretched. Once everything feels good, then I'll cut off my excess, okay? But now on the 5th string, I'm gonna show you another option. When the string is thinner, on the 6th string, it doesn't always work because it's so thick. On the 5th, sometimes it does, depending on the tension, but definitely on the 4th you can. But if you can, you'll go in here once, bring it back up, and go twice. So you can see I went in there twice, and then it holds right there, okay? And then this is where, like I said, people will make the mistake. Look, even if it's in there, I can pull it out. So it can't just go in there twice. You have to wrap it still if you want to make sure once you have tension on the string that you're not having to constantly tune your guitar. I'm going to cut a little bit of this off now since I... this once, bring it back up, and go through again, just like that. There we go. And then, like I said, you can't just do that. You want to bring it up, and same thing, you want to wrap it just twice. But make sure you have, see how I have tension on there? So you can see how that winding, I'm making it kind of taut. And then if you have, again, you can, if you don't have a winder, you're using your hands. String is going over the roller, okay? If you do have a winder, get a good one. Like this one, we use this Planet Waves one. This is really good. Or we have these really cool bits, and you can buy these, you know, this is just like, I think a Craftsman or a Black & Decker. But these are, make it easier. And you can see with this one, I went down the center. So now, see how my strings are not overlapping one another. And I mentioned earlier, if I had moved this bass string over this way, they'd be overlapping. Okay? And then let's do the 4th string, which is the bass side. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm going 6, 5, 4. So I'm starting with the 6th string, the 5th string, and then the 4th string. And then I'll come over here and I'll go 1st string, 2nd string, 3rd string. And again, the reason, if I started with the 4th string here, and I have this string, let's say there's tension on it, now I have this string coming here and I'm trying to fight it to get the next string on and the one after that. Okay, so you want to start with the 6th string, then the 5th string, then the 4th string, then jump to the other side, 1st string, 2nd string, 3rd string. If this was a violin, you do the same thing. Start with the, what would it be, the E, and then either the G and then the D. You know, you can work your way from the outside in either way. So there we go. Now this string, I've only brought it through once. Again, you can do it twice, but just for time's sake, I'm going to do it like that, and then I'm going to wrap it. And I'll go ahead and wrap this one 3 times just because it's a thinner string. And there you go. Okay, we're going to go to the treble strings, but one other thing I want to tell you to do, I'm not tuning it all the way to pitch. You want to be very careful when you're tuning a string, especially if it's a newer instrument. You don't want to be standing right here and tightening the string, because if that string breaks, it's going to come up here and it could really slap you and cut you, or God forbid hurt your eyes or different things like that. So I just get enough tension on there so I don't have to worry about holding it anymore. And then when it comes time to tuning it, I'll hold it like this and put the tuner on there, or the winder, and I'll tune it this way. So then I'm out of the way of potentially getting hurt. So, all right, let's jump to the treble strings now. So on these, usually it's the same thing. We can either tie the knot ourselves like this, or these, they have this little ball end that kind of holds it in place. Either way, you can either use it or not if you wanted to use it. In this case, I would go, again, I'm going to use the design that we've made here where it has 2 holes for every string. So I went through the first one, and then I'm coming back through the next one like this. And then before that goes all the way tight, I'm going to make sure that this string gets underneath it like this. And then I'm going to pull it tight, get all that slack out of it. And remember what I talked about, the string has to be on the back of the tie block. Otherwise, if it's up here, it's going to keep slipping. So, and just like that, okay? So that's holding that one in place. That's one of the reasons we like this design. 1, it's easier to restring. 2, it gives you more downward angle on the string, so you're getting more tone out of it. Now up here, I'm definitely going to run this string through twice. This is the 1st string, or the high E. So we're going to go once, twice through there, bring it up, and then I'm going to wrap it. 1, 2, and 3, just like that. Okay, and then we're going to wind it just like this. And the same thing, I'm guiding it to the outside, close to the actual machine head, to this side right out here. So when I put that string on there, it's kind of towards the outside. And then see how you can see how I've tied this, wrapped it 3 times. See how the wrapping is still kind of right there. If I grab this string and I pull it there, see, now I've pushed that wrapping to where it's going to actually hold on the roller, and that'll help it to where it's not going to loosen. So let's do the 2nd and 3rd string, and on this one I'm going to go ahead and cut this ball end off. All right, so here we go. I cut it again, assuming if you don't have this 12-hole bridge design, then you just go through, it'll just have the 6 holes. You're going to go through here. You can't do this fancy little design I did on the 4th string on a treble string, because it won't hold it. If I pull, it'll end up coming loose like that, okay? And then it'll slip on you when you're trying to tune it up. So on this one, we're gonna do the same thing, bring it down towards the treble strings, up towards the bass string. We wrapped it around, right? So we have it like this, and then we're gonna go 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. And remember, your strings intentionally have a lot of extra slack on them, so don't go crazy on the bridge side, but it's okay if you have a bunch of string left over right here. You can come back and cut that later if it makes it easier for you. Plus, if you go too close when you're pulling on this, or the tension is going, it will slip a little bit and it could potentially come off. You see that winding is coming on the back of the tie block, so it's holding it in place. All right, and then we're going to come up here, and then we're going to do the same thing twice through and wind it up. All right. they stretch a lot. So it's going to take a while for this instrument to get into tune. You can see already it'll be out of tune. Now, you'll see videos where they'll tell you to grab the string and pull it up. That's the dumbest thing you can do. So don't do that. It'll either break the string, or that effort you put into pushing that string down, now you're pushing it back up again. I mean, it's just, don't do that. Grab the string with your thumb and your finger and just bend it like this. The same way like if you were playing with your thumb and your treble strings, bend it like this. Do the same thing to each one of them. Don't overdo it. They're going to have to stretch a little on their own, but that helps a little bit. And then you can retune it. Now this guitar doesn't have frets yet, so I'm going to show you a little trick real quick, okay? Now some guitars will have intonation issues where they don't tune properly. They'll have built-in tuners, and you can get it in tune when the guitar is tuned open, but then when you start playing it, it starts to have, you're noticing that it's out of tune. And that can be caused for a lot of different reasons. The neck can be warped, the nut can be too high, the saddle can be too high, the scale can be off. But one good way to check an instrument is to check it with the harmonic. So I always use the A to check every instrument first. Once I have the A, then I'll go to the 5th string, and these are harmonics, and the 7th. So the 5th of the 6th string and the 7th of the 5th string. And then they should be, that tone should be equal. Now the next one, the 5th of the 5th string, the 7th of the 4th. So you can almost hear that frequency going wah, 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 lining up, right? Now, same thing, 5th of the 4th, 7th of the 3rd. Now the 7th of the E string, or the 6th string, should be your B string, your 2nd string. Seventh of the 5th string is going to be your high E. So, okay, this is an acoustic steel string. This is a guitar that I made, 19 years ago. I'm getting old. And this is a steel string. So even though they're tuned the same, this guitar has a lot more tension on it. This one has about 187 pounds of tension when it's tuned up to the same pitch as that classical guitar we just did. So I'm going to show you how to restring this one. The first thing is removing the strings, which is just you want to loosen the strings, make sure they're really slack. And again, there's a couple different ways. You can use a hand winder like this, or you can use the, we have that bit that we use. You can reach out to us with any questions, or if you're interested in any of the stuff that we're talking about, we can help you with that. You can see I'm just loosening these strings. Now, one of the things that I do, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I'm sure there's going to be people who are watching this and they're going to disagree with this. But there's a way that when I put the strings on at the machine head, I do it intentionally so it's easy to remove. And I do that because a lot of my clients are musicians who are performing, and if they break a string when they're on stage, they need to be able to replace it really quick. And if you just take the string off, then all you do is watch this. You should just be able to go like that, and it comes right off. Makes it easy when you're having to do a string change on stage. All right, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But there's a couple tools that you're going to need. You can either get one of these cool little button pullers right here for the bridge pins, and it just slides on top of it like that, and then you put that tension down and it pulls up and it brings the strap button with you. When I remove them, I like to keep them in the order they came off. So there's a 6th and there's a 5th. A lot of times the string will form a groove into the bridge pin, and I just like to put it back with the same one, okay? If you don't have one of these, if you have one of these cool Delgado Planet Wave string winders, these are better than most. They have a cool little feature here also, where that little hook right there is designed to hook the bridge pin. So you can just come in here, hook the bridge pin, and pull it up like that, and it comes out. So you see it just goes in there and it hooks it and takes it out. So that's another way. And if you don't have any of those and you're just using your fingers to loosen and tighten it and you're trying to figure it out, then if you have a pair of wire cutters or some scissors, whatever you might have, you can, I'm just using a little stack of Post-it notes here so I don't damage the top. You can slide them underneath here like this. I'm just putting a little bit of tension, you don't want to cut it. And then I'm going to push down on that, and that slid that up just like that, and then I can remove it with my hand. So that's another way to do it. Okay, I'm just putting that there, lightly pressing just so it's holding underneath the ball end and pushing like that, and it pops up. Because you see these are round, so this is basically just getting caught underneath there and coming up. So that's another way to do it if you don't have any of these handy dandy little tools. You see, just go underneath. And then I have this little Post-it note pack here so I don't mark up the top of my instrument. All right, let's get to the restringing. Okay, now depending on how much you play, there's this is a guitar that we keep on display here for folks. It's for sale, so we have out so people can play it. So you can use, there's different strings that are available. I like to use a medium gauge. If you like a lighter string that's easier on your fingers and you go to a lighter gauge, these are mediums. They start with a 13 gauge and they go up to a 56. These are Delgados. They're EXP 17s. The reason I'm using these is this is a coated string. And what that means is the string has like a coating that they actually mix in when they're designing when they're making the strings. They don't coat it after the fact. But I don't have to worry, since this is a guitar that's going to be on display. The strings might tarnish over time just from the instrument sitting there. With these coated strings, they're going to last a lot longer. So, and the cool thing about the Delgado strings is they actually color code the ball end of the string. So if for some reason you were confused as to which string is what, you can just look right here. It's BRB GPS, so brass, red, black, green, purple, silver. That's the order, BRB GPS. And it's on their packaging also. So I think it's on here. It tells you the brass is the 6th string, the red is the 5th string, and it goes forth. It goes on and shows you the other ones. All these little tips are helpful if you're somebody who's not used to restringing your own instrument, or you can be a little intimidated by it. This shows you how easy it is. All right, so we're going to start with the 6th string here. And I'm going to go ahead and just do this one string first, and then I'll show you. Normally I would put all 6 in first, but I'm going to show you. Now, one of the things that I did here is I didn't just drop the ball end in there. I put it in, and then I made sure that this little hook right here pushes it in, but then I make sure that I can also feel that it, see that where it slips? I'll do it again. So it's right there. It's on the ball end. If we're looking inside, this is what you would see. It's holding it in. But then when it gets in there, I want to make sure that it slips past it like this, and then that it slides up. And then this pin is holding the string underneath the top like this, and the pin like that. Otherwise, we don't want it sitting way down at the bottom and going all the way in like this, because it'll start to slip over time. Okay, so we got that ball end in there. All right, we're going to bring the string up. Now, some people will put the string through like this, and then they'll tighten it. Okay, you don't want to do that because you don't have enough slack here. And you want the string to at least wrap around once on a steel string. These are different than classical guitars or nylon strings. You don't want it to wrap around a whole bunch of times. So if you're going to do it that way, then you'd bring it loose like this, and then you would start tightening it like this. What I do is I bring the string up and I wrap it around, and then I go on so it wraps on top just like that. Okay, and then I come through here, make sure the string is on top, not underneath. Make sure it comes through on top like this. You see that? I'm going slow to show you here. And then I'll tighten it like this. And then from here, I don't have to sit here and wind it and wind it and wind it and wind it, because it'll just wind really quickly like this. You see? And you want to try to make sure that that string is underneath, because it does a couple of things as it goes down. The same thing we talked about, downward angle, that angle coming off of the nut. If it's you want it to have some down angle, that's going to help on the tension of the string, so you're not getting buzzing, and you get a better tone out of the string. Okay, let's go ahead and do all the other ones. When we get to the first string, actually I'll show you the first string real quick. All right. The first string, it's almost the same, but because it's a thinner string, it's not a wound string, it's just a plain steel string. I'm going to slide it in. You see there's the string isn't moving, but the pin is. That means that the ball end slid underneath and it's trapped in between the bridge plate on the inside of the top and the pin. Okay, I'm going to come over here. Now on this one, what I'm going to do different, and the same thing like we talked about in the classical, you don't go from the outside of the tuner, you go inside. From the inside and around, not from the outside this way. The proper way to wind it is from the inside here. Now on this one, because it's a thinner string, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 times. And I can only really do that with the first, second, maybe with the third I can go around twice. You won't do it with the bass strings, but on these 3 times. And then we're going to slide it through here. Same thing. And then we're going to tighten it up. Now as I'm doing this, you want to make sure and look back here at the bridge pins. Sometimes when you're tightening it, it's not doing it. Sometimes those pins will start to come up. You want to make sure you're ready to push them back down, because they can come pop off and fly and then you lose them. All right, let's do the other ones and then we'll come back to the end and I'll show you what we do here at the headstock. Same thing on these strings. You don't want to pull on them, okay? We're going to just do a little bend, all right? And you can hear how much it stretched. Now watch. Now the good thing about steel strings is they're not going to take a long time to stretch like a classical guitar will. So within a couple of tunings, a little stretching, and they should be ready to go. All right? I'm going to show you a little trick now on the headstock. Okay, now if you were paying attention, you would have seen I went 6, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, the way I strung them up. So I didn't have this string on first, and then I'm fighting that string. I went here, and then here, and then here. So it just made it easier. Now this is where I talked about that some people are going to disagree with me. A lot of people will get the string and they will bend it. You'll see this on electric guitars. But they'll get the string and they'll bend it at the end, like I'll show you right here what they'll do. They'll bend it like this, but really close to here, and then they'll cut the string off. So this little bend would be like just really close right here, okay? I don't do that. I grab the string and I bend it back and forth like this until it breaks. Now the string will stretch again. Bend it back and forth. You hear it? thing, bend it back and forth. And some people think that by doing this, as long as you're checking the tuning as you're doing it, you're not going to have any problems. If you hear it really loosen, tighten it up, and then finish breaking the string off. But I like to do that. You saw at the beginning how easy the string was to remove. If you're on stage and you need to do a quick string change, it works. I know for a fact it works because I do all my guitars like this. I don't play every day, but when I go to grab my steel string guitar out of the case, it's in perfect tune. So it might sit for 2 weeks and the strings haven't stretched, and I keep it tuned up. So I know that it's not going to be an issue. Some people will disagree with me. Sorry, it's worked for me years and years and years, so the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So anyways, so that's how to restring a steel string acoustic. An electric would be somewhat similar. Some of the bodies are solid bodies, and you put them through the back of the guitar and slide it up. Some have posts on the back that it would slide through, but you kind of go through the same motions up on the top of those. And then there's locking tuners, but we can get into that on another time maybe. So anyways, before I leave you, I'm going to show you a couple of things that we've done, some repairs here from broken headstocks to restoration. See, we can almost perform miracles on some instruments here. We're able to restore instruments that some people thought could never be restored, and we're able to make repairs that people thought couldn't be repaired. And our thing is, we always say every instrument can be repaired. Whether it's not of value to do that is not so much the value of the instrument, it's really the value of the instrument to you. So for example, you might have a guitar that's only maybe sells for a couple $100, but maybe it was the first guitar you ever had, or your grandfather gave it to you, or grandmother gave it to you, or whatever, and they're no longer with you, so it has a huge sentimental value. So if it's a value to you to fix it, then it's worth fixing. And that's why we always talk to a customer. If we think the repair is going to exceed the resale value of the instrument, then we give them the option. But if it has sentimental value, then we'll go ahead and do those repairs like some of the ones that you saw. So anyways, before I leave you, I want to show you real quick, as you're out shopping for guitars, you can always come to us and hopefully buy an instrument from us, but we always will help you either look over an instrument for you or give you advice. But one of the things you want to look at when you're looking at instruments is you want to check the tops. You want to make sure, especially if it's a used instrument that doesn't have a warranty, you want to check the top and see if the top might be sinking right in this area or bellying back here. If it's doing that, then that means that either the top has started to warp or the top has warped because there's some braces that are loose. You can tap it, and if you hear a rattle noise, then something is loose in there. It could be a brace or whatever. You try to look down the neck. When you look down the neck, you want it to look straight, or you want it to look a little bit of a bow, but not a lot. If it looks like this, the neck is warped. Now, if it's an electric or a steel string guitar, they have a rod in here called a truss rod that can be adjusted. You want to make sure that there's enough adjustment in there to correct that. But make sure you point that out to whoever it is you're thinking about buying it from, even if it's a store, or get it in writing that they're going to warranty it if you're not able to fix it for something that's going to be really simple to do. And then you want to check the distance of the string to the fret, that action we talked about. Make sure that the action isn't too high. If it's too low, it can be raised. But if it's already, the saddle is really, really high and it's too low, you don't want a really, really high saddle either, because then that could break the bridge. So, you want to just try to look it over and use the best judgment you can. Or if you're new and you're not sure, take somebody with you who is a guitar player and can look at those things. And then the last thing you'll want to look at is, I talked about when you're tuning the instrument. So if you tune it with a tuner, So there's different chromatic tuners that you can put on the headstock, and you can check the tuning. And then you've done the harmonics like I talked about, 5 and 7, and then 5 and 7, the next string, and then E to the B, A to the E, and that's all in tune. Now come to the 12th fret on the 6th string, and then the 7th of the 5th. Make sure that note matches. 12th on the 5th, 7th on the 4th. 12th on the 4th, 7th on the 3rd, 12th on the 3rd, and the 8th on the 2nd string. And then 12th on the 2nd, and 7th on the 1st. Okay? Now those are all perfectly intonated. That means that when I built this instrument, the scale is correct and the saddle has the correct pitches on it to make sure that it's in tune. If it wasn't, you would have it play in tune when you're playing it open, but when you check these, I'm going to exaggerate it, you would hear it would be off. So you want to make sure that those notes match. Usually the one that's off on most instruments is the 3rd at the 12th fret and the 2nd at the 8th, and it's because they forget to compensate that string on there. But check all that out. If it's off a little bit, there's some room here that it can be adjusted if you bring it to a luthier or a repair shop. If it's an electric guitar, they have individual saddles that can be adjusted, and that can be taken care of also. But these are all things that you want to look at, especially like, it's kind of like if you're going out buying a car. You wouldn't want to pay full price for something that you knew you were going to have to go out and get new tires on, or had needed an oil change right away, or whatever it might be. So those are things you want to look at, and when you're talking to whoever it is that you're buying it from, either an individual or a store, you want to take those things into consideration and make sure that they're giving you the right price to take in, if you have to get those things repaired later. So anyways, I hope this has been informative. These are fun to do. We really enjoy them, so hopefully you've enjoyed them as well. And we'll come back with another one and try to keep these coming to you. But in the meantime, thank you guys for tuning in. Check us out at Delgado Guitars if you have any other questions. I want to give a shout out to Metro Arts and just the amazing people over there, and we're so thankful for them and for their support. And they're the ones who have helped through their Thrive grant support a lot of the videos that you're getting to see. So thank you to the staff and all the commissioners with Metro Nashville Arts Commission. And until next time, may God bless all you put your hands to. Thank you.